When I was preparing for the Weakness Cup back in Pokemon Sun and Moon, I had a lot of fun with it and realized how simple it could be to win. What I mean by that, you're about to find out. In order to do this, I had to make Xatu my fastest Pokemon, which required Starmie to be one speed slower than it, and everything else to be at most 1 point slower than the Starmie. In comes the Simple Beam. That was a fake out from the Smeargle, so Starmie can't take advantage of it. And the Palisand starts setting up Amnesia. People should see what the Palisand is aiming for. It's going to be fun. Smeargle gains 2 defense and loses special defense. Good thing I'm a special attacker. Palisand went for the Protect here, not sure why. I should have Simple Beamed the Smeargle, but instead I went with the Thunder Wave. I wanted to shut down the combo if I could. Minimize with Simple is +4 evasion. That was a Spore attempt from the Smeargle, but luckily he had only a 3/7 chance to hit, and he failed. And in comes the Water Shuriken. Each one is an Iron Defense on the Palisand, and it is holding the Weakness Policy to boot. So he gains even more defense, offense, and he still has Amnesia. All he's missing is evasion. Something which I am able to do. Now I Simple Beam the Smeargle. His Moody can't kick in anymore, but I suspect he might have Psych Up anyways. But at the very least, I prevent him from stacking his stacks. There's a second Amnesia. He's now at max defense, weakness policy, and +4 special defense. I suspected more shenanigans onto the Starmie, so I ally switched to protect it. More defenses for me. That's a Shadow Ball onto the Starmie. It was aimed for the Xatu and it breaks through. A simple weakness policy gives +4 to everything. And Smeargle was paralyzed anyway. If he was going to Spore into the Starmie, it would have hit the Xatu instead, which would Magic Bounce back onto him. I am now at max defense on the Starmie and just need to get one more Minimize in. Another Shadow Ball onto the Xatu. It goes down. I'd given it the anti-Dark Berry for the knockoff. I suspected that would be common in the Weakness Cup when I was testing here. In comes Virizion. Virizion takes advantage of everything this Starmie can give it. There's the Minimize, and here's Psych Up. Max evasion, max defenses, +4 attack, +4 special attack, and Smeargle finally hits the Spore onto the Starmie after it's already set up everything. Well, apparently that Smeargle had nothing more to give, so he switched out for the Hydreigon. And I went for the +4 Giga Drain onto the +4 Palisand. That's another Amnesia. He's now at max. I won't do that much less or more. Hydreigon, it has Psych Up, and look at this. He psyched me up instead. He gave up on his water compaction strats because mine was so good, but I had the Sacred Sword. Dark type and a move that ignores the evasion I gave it and the defense I gave it. He failed. He failed classically and dramatically. There was nothing he could have done against that. And his Tapu Koko, it has Psych Up as well. And he psyched up Virizion again. Starmie, I was afraid of it losing a damage to that Discharge or Thunder or maybe Guardian of Alola. Whatever the Tapu Koko wanted to potentially throw at it with the Z move, I wanted to prevent it. But it turns out he didn't have the Z move anyway. Scald its stab onto the Palisand and is enough to knock it out. Sacred Sword onto Tapu Koko, it resists. It's about 2/3 damage. In comes the Smeargle again. It has the fake out potential, but he forfeits anyway. Next up, let's see how this does in this battle. This opponent, I loved her team. I loved her strat. I wish I had thought of it as well. I wouldn't have brought it, but I wish I thought up of it. But it is so perfect. I wouldn't have cared if I had lost to this. I would have shared it anyway. That's an Agility Sawsbuck. The Togekiss, I suspected that it might have the Air Slash to try to knock it down, but it wasn't speed invested. I get off my Simple. I get off my Minimize. And The Togekiss has Tailwind. That is a Sawsbuck now at times 4 speed. Togekiss switches out for the Tapu Bulu. Tapu Bulu sets the Grassy Terrain. Grassy Terrain, Secret Power remains a normal type. It remains a stab on the Sawsbuck. But with its ability Serene Grace, it now has a 60% chance of making my Pokemon fall asleep rather than become paralyzed. I got my minimize in. I get one Cosmic Power in. The Wood Hammer misses the Starmie, and I Thunder Wave that Sawsbuck. Sawsbuck will be annoying if I don't take care of it. I'm now at +4 evasion, +4 defenses on my Starmie. Sawsbuck thankfully gets paralyzed, and in comes the Wood Hammer onto Starmie. That is a stab, super powerful recoil move that is boosted by the terrain. It's not enough to put Starmie even into the red at this point. It survives, it gets off its simple weakness policy, and I Thunder Wave the Tapu Bulu as well. I wanted to stall out the Tailwind and make him less likely to move. I get in my final defensive move, but if Starmie is hit by it again at that range, it's definitely going down. This is going to be trouble. I love the opponent. I love the synergy. Love him. Claps for him. Awards. Applause. I get in my ally switch. He gets off another secret power. It lands on the Starmie, but it doesn't make me fall asleep. Wood Hammer comes through again. Hits the Xatu. I save the Starmie. And Tapu Bulu's not taking as much damage as I'd hoped, and it's being mitigated or reduced by the Grassy Terrain. It's really good Tapu for the Weakness Cup. In comes Virizion, and something that surprised me, the Sawsbuck had Baton Pass, and it passed into Chandelure. I was afraid that he would be going into his Togekiss with a Serene Grace, Agility, Air Slash, but that wasn't the case. I get off my Psych Up, Wood Hammer misses the Starmie again, and luckily for me, he did not Baton Pass into the Togekiss, he Baton Passed into the Chandelure. I was actually holding the Fire Berry rather than the Flying Berry because I thought the Flying Berry would be too obvious. Shadow Ball misses the Starmie. In comes the Scald. I'm at +4. Super effective. Stab. Chandelure. It's one shot. Sacred Sword comes in onto the Togekiss. That's a 4 times resist, but I didn't really mind as much. Tapu Bulu comes in. The Grassy Surge kicks in. Now I can hit the Togekiss with the Giga Drains if I want. That will be decent. Or I can hit with the Scalds. Almost enough to one-shot. I hit Tapu Bulu with a Sacred Sword. And Togekiss, it does show the Air Slash. That probably would have been a better ploy if I hadn't raised my evasion so much. Luckily, his Togekiss is not grounded, so my Pokemon are healing and his Togekiss couldn't. Togekiss, it had to follow me. It didn't change my strat. Starmie was faster. It was going to Scald the Togekiss anyway. Virizion, it had the Sacred Sword. Sawsbuck was a normal type. It goes down anyway. Love the opponent. Really admire him. Wish that I didn't have to humiliate him as much. In comes Danny Boy. The pipes are calling for you, and this was my Trick Room variant. I figured that some people in the Weakness Cup might try to Trick Room me, and I can't really get up much setup if that happened, so I made this variant. Unfortunately, I only had to use that twice during the Weakness Cup, and it wasn't as good or clean a battle as this one right here. So I decided to use the one outside the Weakness Cup for an example rather than the one within. I saw the Protect coming. Marowak let me get my setup in. The Xatu, it's guaranteed faster than the Guzzlord. It gets a Simple in before Double Team. Guzzlord has lost its Beast Boost for Simple, and it's gotten a Double Team, which is a Minimize, without the drawbacks of Heavy Slam or any other moves that benefit off of the Minimize. I get in another double team after an ally switch. The Shadow Bone was aimed at the Xatu, but misses the Guzzlord. That Will-O-Wisp, it was aimed at the Guzzlord, hit the Magic Bounce Xatu, and reflected back onto the Mimikyu. If it's a physical attacker, its output is now halved. I get in my final double team. I'm at max evasion. Unfortunately, this Mimikyu, it has leftovers, so the burn is perfectly countered. Mimikyu, it has a play rough, but it's halved damage, it doesn't do much. And I decided to test the Marowak. It showed physical moves, so I figured that throwing out a Thunder Wave would be a good scout. If it had Lightning Rod, it would not have any recoil moves, but without Lightning Rod, I suspect it might have Rock Head, but I wasn't seeing any such attack yet. Now that I've gotten my double teams to max, my Guzzlord is now going for defenses. 3 stockpiles doubled is +6, just the same as Cosmic Power. In kicks the leftovers from the Mimikyu before the Guzzlord's burn, and then before the Mimikyu's burned. I want to stall out the Trick Room as much as I can. Marowak, it now calls the Shadow Bone correctly. I did not ally switch. The Xatu faints. The Guzzlord, it's getting more stockpiles. And Trick Room should be ending this turn if I timed it right. Swords Dance from the Mimikyu. He sees that he still has his disguise up. And I had earlier forgotten that Simple Beam cannot affect form-based abilities. I was trying to get rid of the disguise a cheeky way. The Xatu didn't have any offensive moves, so I just tried that. Xatu, it also has Miracle Eye. That way I can hit evasive opponents without having to bring the Virizion. Marowak, it's getting ready for the Trick Room again. Latios, it has the Psych Up as well. This Latios, it has Psych Up, Recover, I believe Ice Beam, and Stored Power. Mimikyu, it resets the Trick Room again, even though it knows that the Guzzlord is slower than the Mimikyu. But then again, since I paralyzed his Marowak, the Alolan Marowak is now slower than the Guzzlord, so that could be an advantage if he was aiming for the Guzzlord. Shadow Bone, it hits the Latias. It's at +4 defenses, I think, and it takes about a third damage. Now for the offensive move on the Guzzlord, it has the Snarl. If those were special attackers, it would be having an even worse time. If I had simpled before the Snarl, even worse. The Snarl broke the sub, the burn broke any focus sash, and the stored power took out the Mimikyu. In comes the Vikavolt. He was really banking on Trick Room with this team outside the Weakness Cup, and I show off my final move on the Guzzlord, the Rest. It is a tank. It is stally. It works better against special than physical. It works better against Trick Room than not. I psych up to get that final stockpile onto the Latias. Guzzlord, it's remaining asleep. Vikavolt, it could be dangerous, but I get off my stored power to one-shot it. That told me that the focus sash likely was on the Mimikyu. Mawile comes in. It has Intimidate, but since this team was based around special attackers, that -2 to the offensive will not matter at all, except for stored power losing 40 points. The Mawile comes in. It has a Sucker Punch that misses. Marowak gets paralyzed. Guzzlord's asleep. I get off my stored power. And it turns out those 40 points might have mattered in the end. It wasn't quite a one-shot. I knew the damage was going to be close. I decided to recover just in case and stall out that Sucker Punch. Guzzlord goes for another Snarl. It'll be enough to finish off the Mawile next turn. So I knew that Latias should aim for the Marowak this time. And this was another way to use Simple Beam for setup. You saw it on the Guzzlord, you saw it on the Xatu. It was coming from the Xatu onto the Guzzlord and the Starmie. This is the new Star of Stall move over Vespiqueen.